Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson. Earlier, I had a chance to talk to Dr. Jerome Corsi. Now, he is an interesting gentleman. He is the senior editor at WorldNetDaily. He writes a lot of articles there at WorldNetDaily, and he's authored some incredible books in the days gone past that ended up being New York bestsellers. Well, his latest book is called No Greater Valor. And I think you're going to find our time together with Dr. Corsi to be very special. Join me now as we talk to him about his book. Good to see you. How was the root canal?
Oh, I survived. I always do. You know, teeth are, hey, at least I still have them, you know?
Yeah, there you nice to see you again. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas.
Hey, what made you take this topic on, the siege of Bastogne?
Well, the end of World War II has always been, World War II in general was fascinating. My father fought in World War II, and you know, as a kid, I would always ask his friends and him what they did in the war. And the story of Bastogne, you know, which occurred during the Battle of the Bulge, the very end of the war, when Hitler tried this massive Panzer counteroffensive and just about pulled it off. I mean, except for a few units like the 101st Screaming Eagles that went in unprepared, no winter clothing, into this very bitter winter, and little tiny village Bastogne in Belgium, Crossroads Village, and held off for 8 days over Christmas. I mean, it's a great story. And what fascinated me so much was the guys who would talk about it, who had been there or, you know, been in the Battle of the Bulge, all had the feeling that Bastogne was a intervention by God, that, you know, the things that happened, that, you know, miracles, that the weather broke and Patton had a prayer said, and the whole nature of it was really one of moral courage in the tradition that stretches back to George Washington praying in the snow at Valley Forge and coming out with a victory that would be completely unanticipated. Well, so too, you know, the 101st going into Bastogne, even when they were sent into Bastogne, you know, nighttime, open trucks, trucked 107 miles in back roads, Belgium, where they didn't even know where they were. Eisenhower and Bradley, the two generals in, you know, the Supreme Allied Command, thought the 101st was expendable. The entire unit got wiped out. As long as they held the Germans for 48 hours, Eisenhower and Bradley would have considered it to be a good deal.
Wow.
And yet they held for 8 days, and they held under remarkable adversity, running out of shells in the foxholes, getting gangrene because they didn't have proper foot coverage. I mean, it's a tremendous story of faith and courage, and the 101st is today off in Liberia fighting Ebola. I went to Fort Campbell, where they're headquartered in Kentucky, and worked in the archives. It's one of the most distinguished military units in U.S. history, military history. And it's a proud unit. It has every reason to be, and I wanted to tell the story.
Wow. How did you find the information?
Well, you know, that's what I'm a researcher by nature. Remember, I'm an academic. I'm a PhD. I got a PhD at Harvard at 25. I used to be pretty good at this even as a kid. So, you know, it's a library. I was never any good at baseball, but I could go into a library and read every book in a couple days. So the archives are not easy to use in a college park. You've got to resolve to spend a lot of time there figuring out where things are and how they're stored. And the truth is, the archivists don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe an archivist who worked there 20 years ago knows, but they're gone. So you just got to sit there and say, give me these boxes, and, you know, wait for the boxes to come out. It's a long process. And then you got to say, is this what you're looking for or not? For instance, I knew that S.L.A. Marshall, one of the military historians, was at Bastogne, and he took oral histories right after the battle. But nobody knew where they were. And I called military archives. I called West Point. I worked with the archivists at College Park. Nobody knew where they were. They were lost. Well, so here I am one day in the middle of doing this research, and I'm opening a box and looking at it and reading it, and here they are. So this is it. This is the after battle oral history with General McCall, who was the commander, you know, at Bastogne, the artillery commander of the 101st, and is signed by S.L.A. Marshall. Well, I found about 25 or 30 of these, and they were invaluable. I have them up now. NoGreaterValue.com is premiums. People can get them free if they buy the book. But they were lost.
Wow. That is fascinating. I don't. It must emotionally impact you when you start reading this stuff. How do you keep your composure when you realize not only the valor but the faith and the divine intervention?
It is a very emotional experience. It's even emotional for me to be interviewed about the book. I mean, it's, you read these military records once you get them, the after action reports are very, very detailed, hour by hour, minute by minute records often. And you're reading about people who, and you realize that you're talking about these mostly 20-year-old kids. And, 15% of them are dead by the time this is over.
Wow.
And, you're reading what they did and how they fought and the actions they went through. And it's just remarkable to think how, here you are. The 101st went in. They didn't have any winter equipment. They basically didn't have any ammunition. The 28th Infantry was on the roads from Bastogne in retreat. These men were dazed. They were saying, Panzers everywhere. You're all going to get killed. There's millions of Germans up there. Don't go up there. And the guys at the 101st said, well, that's why they're sending us in.
Wow.
To take care of it. And they said, are you using that M1? Well, we could use it. Give it to us. They had the guys pile up, retreating, their coats and their clothes and their weapons and their ammunition. And the 101st driving by took what they could. That's how they armed themselves going into battle.
Wow. Dr. Corsi, there's something about that generation's American spirit / faith.
No question about it.
You discovered it in your research. How do you explain it? I mean, it was an unbelievable.
Well, what you have with these people, with that generation, and I think with a lot of generations of Americans, and it's one of the reasons, General Boykin commented on the book. He endorsed it. And of course, he was fired from the military by President Obama for refusing to stop professing his faith openly in Jesus Christ. And you realize that, the military, our founding fathers said, and this also has intrigued me since I was a kid, you read various of the founding fathers saying, if America ever loses its Judeo-Christian tradition, you will lose your freedom. Now, I'm wondering, I always thought about that as a kid. So how could somebody like Jefferson, Jefferson's a very highly intelligent, gifted guy. I mean, he's doing mathematics, he's inventing things, he's producing furniture, he's building Monticello, he speaks French, he goes off to France, he's, meeting with the best philosophers, he's a sophisticated guy. And yet Jefferson is saying, go back and read the first sentences of things, the Declaration of Independence and our founding documents. And it's clear that they're saying that this is a nation founded on natural right, on the God principles, that this is how God created us. And Jefferson got it largely from Aristotle. People forget that Aristotle studied constitutions. And Aristotle's fundamental best regime was a constitutional republic of limited checks and balances, executive, legislative, and judicial. That's an Aristotle concept.
Wow.
Jefferson was impressed by Aristotle, as I was impressed by Aristotle, as a kid reading it. I got to remember, I didn't go to school. I basically ran away from kindergarten. But I went to the library. And why would I go to kindergarten when I could sit there and read Jefferson?
Yeah.
What a waste of time it was, too. So here, when I'm a kid, and just like I was a kid listening to my dad, and my dad was a tough guy. He was a labor negotiator. A machine gun blew up in my dad's face when he was in the Army Air Force, and his vision was bad. He had to always wear a patch or a lens over a dark lens on one of his eyes on his glasses. And he finally got an operation when he was just about ready to die, and he was cured. I went back to see him. He still had the patch on. I said, well, Dad, no, I don't mean to pry, but I thought Mom said this operation was successful. He said it was. I said, well, then why do you have the patch on? If I can ask. He said, because I liked the patch. But he's a tough guy.
Wow.
It made him look bad. And, and yet, these guys who went through Bastogne and went through the experience were experiencing God in the experience. just like Jefferson did. So I'm thinking to myself, these are highly intelligent guys. They must be onto something. What's the key to unlocking that mystery? And I really began and have perceived all my life that they were right, because this is fundamentally an exercise in affirming faith, belief, and moral relativism fails because it produces what you see in our society today. And that is, this disintegration, this breakup, that all values hold, so any value is good, and, now we're going to worry about transvestites in the military.
Dr. Corsi, you not only weep for what you discovered in your research, but I sense in this topic also is what we have lost in America. And where is this faith? Why have we allowed seemingly one person to push it so far into the ditch? It's an amazing, I see where Klinkenschmidt lost his case before the federal judge, and of course it'll be appealed for praying in Jesus' name. I mean, we're kicking the very source of what keeps us together out. And from what you've said, it appears we have forgotten that the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States are divinely inspired documents.
Precisely. And that's the basis of saying America is an exceptional country. In other words, America is not just another country founded. There's, 197 countries today, and how many countries over the historical, junk heap of countries. But, the ones that have persisted, that have been historically significant, the United States was founded on natural law principles, thinking about God, thinking about how we function as human beings, being skeptical of power. The Roman Republic was the height of, people like Cicero and Cato. Go back and read them, which I've done, and they continue to fascinate me. Understood the same principles. And that is, if the Roman Empire moved away from a divine concept, even though the divine concept was, pre-Jesus Christ, and it was it was multiple gods, it was, polytheic, it was still founded in natural law. I mean, Aristotle, Plato were not Christian. There was no Christ to be Christian about. But yet, if you read Aristotle and Plato, you read the Gorgias of Plato, the discussion is, is justice something that's practical? It's not fair. Justice isn't fair. Plato has a discussion about, in the Gorgias, about, well, why don't we build boats with holes in the bottom? Says that's a good idea. We can see the fish. And then they say, well, the reason we don't build boats with holes in the bottom is because they don't float very well.
Yeah.
And the reason why we don't have dictators is they don't float very well.
Yeah.
So it's not just any government is equivalent to any other government.
Wow. Let me take a break here, Dr. Corsi. And again, the book is entitled No Greater Valor. By the way, you can go to nogreatervalor.com is the website. Look for it in bookstores, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and get a copy of it. It would make a wonderful Christmas gift. No Greater Valor by Dr. Jerome Corsi. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at theDove TV. Did you know that when you support theDove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
Okay, we're back, and our special guest today is Dr. Jerome Corsi, and of course he's a New York Times best-selling author, and his latest book is entitled No Greater Valor, and it examines the seas of Bastogne, and let me tell you, this is quite a book, and I can tell that it has changed him personally by doing the research on this book. But there's much to glean from it, and I would hope that you would check it out. You can go to nogreatervalor.com or look for it online at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Before I leave the book, Dr. Corsi, it's obvious it's impacted you greatly. What was your biggest surprise in researching this?
Oh, well, there were a lot of surprises. I think the really understanding the depth to which, those who fought at Bastogne had gone. I mean, there's moments in the battle. Christmas Eve, the battle was fought over Christmas. They all go to services, and at the end of the services, approaching, after midnight, the troops come back and they say goodbye to each other. Kind of a quiet descends on the battlefield, which the generals didn't really understand. And the men actually thought a lot of them would die the next day. And they heard the Germans singing Christmas carols in the woods, and they realized they were the same Christmas carols that we sing, but in German, like Silent Night, etc. And, that kind of a bond was, a moment in Bastogne was really kind of touching. And you wonder what it had to have been like to have been there, to have gone through that, and to realize, the values that transcended the two forces. And you have to wonder, the Nazis, our troops fighting there were aware of the massacre of Normandy. I mean, the SS had come through and under a guy named Piper and had massacred about 100 U.S. troops who had surrendered, POWs standing in a snowy field, and went through the field and stabbed with bayonets any who survived the machine gunning. And, we felt the Nazis were truly evil, and how they could yet, this was one of the fascinations of Hitler, how a Christian nation like Germany could descend into the barbarism that was represented by Hitler, the concentration camps, and all the other things the Nazis did. And the moral determination our men had to, restore values within, the world, and to destroy this evil force. And it's with perception that I wonder if we could have today.
Oh, boy. I'm just wondering, for various reasons, political correctness and other things, have we antiseptically scrubbed faith and morals from the military?
Well, see, I mean, this is the issue. And the issue to me is that, the Nazis went down this path. And by the time, Hitler, absolutely atheistic. I mean, he had no belief in, he was, if anything, he crossed over and was satanic. I mean, if you look at it from a Christian perspective. And the evil, he was perfectly happy to casually administer on the world, sipping tea at Bergdorf while sending Jews to the ovens in the concentration camps at Dachau. And, I've walked Auschwitz, twice. These are other experiences that fundamentally change you. And you see what happens when people lose religion. Well, why is it that we're having difficulty deciding that, it's evil when ISIS is beheading, crucifying people and killing them by jamming crucifixes down their throats? And, killing whole villages, women and children. Do we really have to worry about whether this is evil, or is this just, choice A, B, C, D on the morally equivalent list to pick whichever flavor you want today?
All right, let's jump over into some current issues. It appears the president has no policy or plan to stop what you just mentioned. If anything, he seems to be throwing gas on the fire.
Well, if you recall, when I wrote The Abomination in 2008, I warned everyone that Barack Obama, who we really still fundamentally don't know who he is, his background documents have yet to be proven in any degree of detail. It looks like a CIA background to me, manufactured entity, manufactured personality. I said this was a person who was raised as a child in Indonesia by a Muslim stepfather who educated him as a Muslim and brought him to the mosque. And Barack Obama then, of course, denied all that. And then when he gets a chance, he was in Cairo in, I believe, June 2009. I was in Israel at that time. And Obama gets up in front of a auditorium and says, in Cairo, and says, I've experienced Islam on 3 continents. And I said, well, that's interesting. Why didn't you tell people that when you were running for president?
Yeah.
Okay, so now you've got someone who, if you look at what he does, forget about what he says, because I think after Gruber, even the most diehard Obama ideologue would have to admit that this is a guy who lies habitually.
Right.
Doesn't really care about the truth. Everything he says is calculated to get you to do something. And I've warned people about that. That's the Saul Alinsky basis. Again, another moral relativist manipulating people, which is what, once you've lost your values, you can easily get around to doing. So here you have someone who basically, what he's done is destabilize Northern Africa, killed Gaddafi by supporting Al-Qaeda in Libya.
Right.
When Gaddafi, Farrakhan, and Reverend Wright, when Obama was coming up remember, Obama attended the Million Man March for Farrakhan. And here's Obama associated with both Reverend Wright and Farrakhan getting money from Gaddafi. And then Obama abandons Gaddafi and kills him through Al-Qaeda. And we wonder why Chris Stevens is killed, probably either fostering or objecting to the arms traffic we're doing, like Fast and Furious, through Benghazi, with the arms going through Turkey into Syria.
Right.
So you have the rise of the Muslim Brotherhood, and here you have Egypt. The Muslim Brotherhood takes over. Muslim Brotherhood traces back to the Mufti of Jerusalem, who was a buddy of Hitler, and it's now a criminal organization in Egypt. Yasser Arafat was an Egyptian. He came up through the Muslim Brotherhood. He wasn't Palestinian.
Mm-hmm.
And Obama, as soon as the Muslim Brotherhood takes over, puts all kinds of money into Egypt. And then the moment there's a military coup and the Muslim Brotherhood's under trial, Obama withdraws the money. So Russia moves in and starts supporting Egypt. And now you've got the situation in Al-Qaeda. Well, Obama has gone back and forth wanting to kill Assad or wanting to work with the moderate forces. Well, there are no moderate forces here. The people who are fighting Assad are a group of militant, mercenary Islamicists, killers that we funded going back to Libya.
Unbelievable. All right. Secretary Hagel's resignation. It appears that he reached an impasse. He couldn't manage the department. And it also appears that he may have woken up on the job and realized that this whole terrorist problem is bigger than Obama wants to really deal with. What's your take on him?
Well, I'm going to start off by saying I've never had a lot of respect for Hagel to begin with. I've always felt that Hagel probably engineered and stole his election when he won it. And that I've studied the voting in that case pretty detailedly. I think Hagel was appalled. I think even Hagel.
Yeah, that's the point.
Even Hagel.
Yeah.
Couldn't take what Obama was doing to the military and wouldn't preside over its destruction. And, Obama is, again, if you look at what he's doing, not what he says, the military, as I predicted when I wrote Abomination, we would end up with a much weakened military, because Obama's conviction from, if you read my book, I was the first one to say Obama's thinking comes from Frantz Fanon, and he's opposing colonialism. Dinesh D'Souza, who's a good friend, will openly admit that the theme of his first movie was something I first developed. Because I was reading Obama's writings from, Dreams from My Father. I said, wait a minute, this sounds exactly like Frantz Fanon. And whoever wrote it, Frantz Fanon was a radical Algerian who wrote books about why it was necessary for the psychological development of African Americans, or at this point Algerians, to go kill whites. He's a psychiatrist, and he was recommending kill whites therapeutically. Well, I thought when I was a kid, I read that in college. I thought, this Frantz Fanon character is about as weird a fruitcake as you're ever going to find. How can you go as a psychiatrist and recommend to people they kill in order? So this sounds like Charles Manson.
Wow.
And so here you got Obama parroting Frantz Fanon, paragraph for paragraph, and I'm saying this is a guy who has got tremendous hatred of the United States as a colonial power and will do everything he can to reduce our military and reduce our significance in the world. And I predicted that when I wrote Abomination. And of course, everybody said I was a liar and a hate case and I didn't know what I was talking about. I think now 6 years later, you go back and look at Abomination, you tell me where I was wrong.
Yeah. Dr. Corsi, thank you. I wish I had you for several hours, and I look forward to having you back often and soon. I want to say thank you for writing the book, No Greater Valor, and I want to say thank you for your transparency this morning. I'm moved by it deeply, and thank you for your tenacity to stay in there. So let's get together again soon. If we don't see you before Christmas, Merry Christmas to you and yours, okay?
And likewise, and to the audience, and I'll be happy to come back anytime you ask.
Well, there he is, Dr. Jerome Corsi, quite a guy. Well, here we are in the middle of the Christmas season, not too far away from Christmas. Are you ever concerned about counterfeits when you buy something, or just could you be getting the real deal? We're going to talk about that coming up next here in just a few moments.
Hi, I'm Paula, and I work at theDove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on theDove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or call us at 541-776-5368.
Welcome back. Well, here we are heading into the Christmas season, and got some concerns, counterfeit being one of them. I am delighted to have with us today Brian Noyes. He's the Executive Director and Strategy and Communications Director there at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Global Intellectual Property Center. How's that for a long title? And we want to talk about avoiding counterfeit goods. And Brian, good to see you. Merry Christmas.
Thank you so much for having me, and Merry Christmas to you and your listeners.
Yeah, this is so interesting. How bad is this problem?
Oh, it's huge. Everywhere you go, it's amazing, especially with more people shopping online. We have found through recent polling that 6 out of 10 people are shopping online regularly, and as the holiday season comes around, there's even more of that going on. And the phrase we have around here is, if there's a product that's good enough to sell that you're going to want, there's a criminal enterprise out there that's ready to knock it off. So just about anything that you can think of, there's potential for counterfeits in it.
Wow. How do we become aware of what's real and what's not? What are you guys doing to help us with this?
Sure. So, again, we're working at this holiday season because the best answer is for a consumer to educate themselves. And, if the old adage and the number one thing to do is if a deal seems too good to be true, it probably is. Looking for, the number one way you can protect yourself is to go through trusted sites, trusted brands, websites that you're familiar with, because that's the surest way that you're going to avoid fakes. As you're going around online, there's some other tips that we have on our Global Brand Council site. We have a top 10 tips to protect yourself. Those include looking for, when you hit that little shopping cart, it will send you to a website. This is HTTPS. The S stands for secure, so you want to look for things like that. You want to look for a contact name, phone number, or address on the website. If that's not there, then you may not be dealing with who you think you're dealing with. The graphic design and the amazing ability of criminals to put up a fake website that looks almost exactly like the one that you think you're getting is pretty amazing. So you have to be careful. Another thing is if you're on a U.S.-based retailer or web group, and somehow when you click, it takes you to a foreign or a .uk or some other country URL. It's a lot of, that's a danger sign as well. So there's a lot of telltale signs that we list on our site.
Wow. So this is primarily an online problem.
It's bigger because it's online, but it's been around for a long time. You think about the global reach and the amazing tool that the internet is for commerce. It also, as hard as legitimate companies are working, there's criminal enterprises out there working just as hard to get your dollars. And the unfortunate thing is, these are not Boy Scouts and nuns that we're talking about. If they're willing to sell you a fake consumer good or a fake toy, they're also willing to steal your identity, your credit card information. And unfortunately, they're using money from counterfeit goods to fund even worse and more significant criminal enterprises like human trafficking and drugs.
All right, let me just say to our viewers and listeners, it's theglobalipcenter.com.
That's our main website, and the tips are actually on globalbrandcouncil.com.
Globalbrandcouncil.com, okay, or
yes.
the globalipcenter.com. Either one will get you there.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so give us some tips on how to spot it.
Well, a few of them that I've already mentioned is, looking for legitimate.com sites. You'll go to a website and it looks legitimate, but if it says, the URL, the three letters afterwards are for a foreign country, you have to be suspicious. If that S is missing on the HTTPS, again, the S stands for secure, that's another telltale sign. So, looking for legitimate brands is the #1 way to protect yourself.
Okay. Now, let's say the worst happens. We're scammed, or we buy something that's counterfeit. What can we do?
Well, we encourage you to report it, first of all. So safeproducts.gov is the U.S. government's preferred site. And you can also go to the National IPR Center, National Intellectual Property Rights Center, and report them. Unfortunately, you may not be able to track them down. So the #1 way to avoid problems is to go to places you trust to begin with. Because if you have, just bought something from a organized criminal enterprise in Ukraine, there's very little that your local sheriff or federal agencies can do to help you. We're working constantly with them to provide information, working with them to identify where there are problems, but every time, this is one of those consistent deals. Every time you shut down one website, another one pops up somewhere else. Right. And it's a never-ending problem.
No question about it. What about some of these like eBay bid websites and stuff like that? Is it prevalent there as well?
They're a lot. They're very secure, and they're both Amazon.com and eBay are both really good companies, and they do their best. But even with good companies like that, counterfeits do slip in. Again, some of the tips are if you're going through Prime or one of the other, sponsored entities that Amazon has, then you're probably in a better situation. If it's somebody that you don't know, or if it's a foreign address that you're being asked to send money to or being shipped from, those are, trouble signs that you need to be careful of. But generally, those types of websites also have mechanisms that you asked about earlier, so that if you do get a counterfeit problem or a product that you're not satisfied with, they will try to make you whole. These bad guys will never care, and they will never try to make you whole.
Brian, is there kind of like a cyber war going on now? I mean, if you take a legitimate site of a company that's being scammed by somebody else, are they going after those phony people as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're the Chamber of Commerce, so we represent businesses. We talk to businesses every day. It is a growing cost to them to have to fight these criminal enterprises, and they did it in physical goods before. Well, the cost now on the electronic side and through the internet is increasing, and quite frankly, it jeopardizes legitimate jobs. So there's a loss of sale plus the additional expense of trying to go after them. There are 40 million jobs in the U.S. that are dependent upon innovative companies and companies that depend on intellectual property. And every one of those jobs is at risk when people buy counterfeit goods because of the expanded cost and the lost sales. So we're working on this year round, but this is a time of year where obviously the sales are significantly higher, and we're trying to raise awareness. But I would hope that people keep an eye out for this year round. Car parts, used car parts, airbags, brake pads, right. Pharmaceuticals. There's a huge market in fake pharmaceuticals, and the American Board of Pharmacies actually says 97% of websites that sell prescription drugs online are illegitimate. They're not using prescriptions, and so there's very few that you can go through, and consumers get that. So the number of consumers who buy medicines online is significant, and trust online pharmacies is significantly lower than general goods.
Wow.
But it's a year-round problem, and it affects businesses, it affects jobs, and it affects consumer safety.
All right. Well, listen, thank you for what you guys do there at the chamber. Let me give those websites again, the globalipcenter.com, and what are the other ones?
Sure. So the Global Brand Council is where you can find the top 10 tips. And then safeproducts.gov is where you can go to find out information about what the federal government's doing and to report problems.
If you realize you've been scammed by a counterfeit, I guess one of the recourses, if it's instantly, you can probably call your bank and stop the transfer, couldn't you?
Sure, absolutely. Financial institutions, credit card companies, and so on have some of those protections, but you have to find them quick. These criminals, again, if you've given your credit card information to them, you do need to notify your financial institution, because not only will they charge you for a good they may never send, they may use that for any other number of purposes.
Wow. Okay. Hey, thanks again. Thanks for your service, and thanks for being there. Merry Christmas to you, my friend.
Thanks for everything you're doing, and we appreciate the effort that you're taking to let your listeners know about this problem. So thank you, and Merry Christmas to all of you.
Okay, you too. All right, we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Daniel, and I work at theDove TV. You know, compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market, but at theDove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
Welcome back, and our special guest today is David Pickup. He's an MA, and he's a licensed marriage and family therapist, as well as a reparative therapist, and formerly a board member with Parents of Friends of Ex-Gays and Gays, better known as PFOX. And PFOX ran a billboard campaign in a southern state, and needless to say, it was quite controversial. We want to talk to him about that as well. Hi, David. How are you, my friend?
Fine. How are you doing?
Good. Merry Christmas to you. Good to see you.
Yes,
so, first of all, what is the mission of PFOX?
The mission of PFOX is to offer, well, it's inherent in the name, Parents and Friends of Ex-Gays. It's to promote the fact that homosexuality is not something that is naturally inborn, that there's a cause and effect nature to it, and PFOX helps those who are working out of homosexuality into heterosexuality with support systems, through families, through the organization themselves, through friends, as we call them, and to support the journey of the ex-gay man or woman into a life of what they believe they were truly born for, of heterosexuality.
Fascinating. Now, before we get any more details on it, what happened with the billboard campaign?
Well, we decided and by the way, I should say something. I'm an advisor to the board of PFOX right now, okay, just so you know.
Okay.
And we decided that in Virginia, it was a good place to offer another side of the story, a side of the story in which most of the mainstream media doesn't seem to want to know. And that is our viewpoints that we're expressing. So we're also appealing to science. And so to get that word out, because our information is constantly being sequestered and hindered from getting out, we thought a billboard would be a very good way to explain from scientific standpoints through research that no one is born gay.
All right. And
thus
so
helping.
Explain the billboard.
Well, it indicates that a Northwestern University study in the year 2000 indicated that through identical twin studies, even though identical twins are born with the exact same genetic makeup, the same genes, it was only about somewhere around 50% of if one was gay, then the other one was gay. And so the point is that if homosexuality were truly something that was absolutely genetic, then the percentage of one being gay and the other being gay is going to be somewhere around 99%, 98%, at least somewhere around 90%, but it's way lower than that. So the point is there's another story to this, and there are environmental, emotional causes, usually during the developmental years, that actually are causes of homosexuality. And so we promoted this billboard in an effort to get the truth out there.
Wow. Boy, I wish I had you for an hour, but let me just ask you a couple of quick questions. One, the bottom line is you're saying that there's no scientific/medical evidence that supports gay is from birth.
There is research done on that. There are many studies. Well, let me take the most well-known, most authoritative association in the world, the American Psychological Association, the APA. Mm-hmm. Even they on their website say there is no gay gene. But for some reason, that's not being reported in mainstream media. They say currently, as far as they know, in other words, no one knows for absolute sure, that homosexuality is caused by a combination, probably, of genetic and environmental influences. Well, if that's true, I don't believe that. I believe it's environmental. But if that was true, then where's all the research that they are doing to look at the environmental, emotional causes? And you don't find them doing any research. They, in a kind of, in my opinion, in a kind of backhanded way, still promote through their language that gay is always inborn. So that's another reason why we put up this billboard, so that we could do our best to get out other research that they are refusing to do or tend to shy away from.
So what are some of those environmental contributions?
Well, in every, as you said, I'm a reparative therapist, and I have two practices. My entire practices are composed of mainly men who are dealing with these issues. And those causes, make a long story short, those causes usually are always a severe case of gender identity inferiority. And I emphasize the word severe. There's a lot of insecurity when they're growing up, and they grow up in a very inferior, unfortunately, terribly so, a very inferior mindset of who they are in their own gender. And then also speaking of men primarily, male emotional needs are in various ways not met hardly at all, or not enough at least, like a need for affection, same-sex needs, I might add, affection, approval, affirmation of their male identities. That often comes in the form of whoever the male role model is for the family. For some reason, not condemning anyone, but for some reason that connection is not formed. And so the mirroring that child needs is not formed as well. And also it represents itself in terms of a boy's peers. He's often ostracized because he doesn't know. He just, in many cases, grows up and other boys bully him and they put him down. And the boy grows up with a sense of inferiority. And so if he can't feel his own sense of whole masculinity in his own body, he will, in many cases, project that out onto other guys, and there comes the objectification of masculinity instead of the subjective experience within himself. And so an object becomes a sexual object in puberty. Is
it a matter of yielding to the homosexual pull or deciding to go that way?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Is it a matter for the individual, they're yielding to those attractions, or is it an actual decision they make to go that way?
Well, that sounds like a little bit of both. We don't believe that let me just say this, we don't believe that homosexual feelings come up because it's a simple choice, not at all. Now, as we all know, one may in their lives have many feelings, of course, and then they decide, sometimes instantaneously, to act on those feelings. But those feelings come up as a result of wounds that these children did not deserve. And when therapy is given to them where they resolve these wounds, their feelings change. Long story short version, but that's the mechanism of it.
Yeah, again, I'm going to have you back, David, because this is fascinating. Let's go over to those that you've helped come out of the lifestyle. How do you do that? How far back into their life do you go?
Well, it depends on each client, but I'm going to be, because everybody is unique, but I'm going to be very generic to at least get across as best an answer as I can give you. Most clients experience this emotional trauma. And by the way, some of my clients have all sexual, and that causes some of the homosexual feelings to come up as well. It's a contributing factor. Right. Anyway, we go back into the past because in most men's cases or boys' cases, they've repressed. These feelings are scary to them. They're confused. They're carrying a lot of inferiority and grief and anger, and they don't know how to deal with it, so it gets repressed. Well, in the kind of therapy I do, which is authentic reparative therapy, not the junk that you hear out there on the mainstream media or on the internet. We go back into those wounds, and we raise their level of self-esteem. We get rid of any and all shame for having homosexual feelings. Because a lot of people I found in my practice think that you have to shame yourself to get out of homosexuality, which doesn't make sense. It's quite the opposite. And these boys, through the healing of these emotional wounds and then getting current day as best as possible, these needs that are so necessary that I've talked about, they find that their homosexual feelings spontaneously, automatically lessen, or in some cases completely dissipate. That's a short version, and it takes a lot of guys use a lot of time.
I apologize. Again, we're going to have you back, but quickly,
Okay.
How does one's faith play into this recovery or this transformation?
Well, I can tell you in my experience, faith for most clients has a big part. I don't, unless the client asks for it, I don't take the therapy through the spiritual lens. I can do that, but I first respect what the client's beliefs are. Right. I have some clients actually who are gay. People are surprised at that sometimes. They know what I do. We trust each other. They work on other issues. They don't want to change, and I don't force anybody to change. I would never do something unethical like that. So on the other hand, the people who come into my office, 90% of them I would say are people of faith. And so they're coming in with two beliefs, basically, that something about homosexuality doesn't feel authentic to them on an emotional, psychological level. Right. And also homosexuality, of course, doesn't match their faith. In most cases, it's Christian, but it's not exclusive to that. So in the therapy session, whatever their beliefs are, we stay within that belief system. And if they need to, we see it through the lens of spirituality as well.
Fascinating. Where can people go to learn more about PFOX?
PFOX.org. PFOX.org. That's it. And I would suggest anyone contact them, because they are a great referral service that they can put any struggler or parent or friend or whoever in touch with a vast amount of resources, in some cases spiritual, but in large cases with research and professional therapy. And we're just really happy to be a part of this growing movement that is saying, with respect, saying no to homosexual ideology, because it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit, at least for the people that we give help to.
All right, I'm out of time, David. Let me ask you quickly, though. Are more therapists beginning to pick up where you are, or are they beginning to treat people like you are?
In my opinion, yes. There's still not a lot of people. I think people are basically scared of these issues, but we are moving forward with it, no matter what the media says.
Great. Hey, thanks for your time. Merry Christmas to you, and let's get you back longer and talk more about this, okay?
Happy to, anytime. I'm on it.
Have a great day. All right, we'll see you next time on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Jim, and I work at theDove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us.